Okay, so hello, Strider, and welcome to the Celtic Heart Temple. It is very nice to have you. And for those who do not know Strider yet, or me by the chance, then Strider is a life coach specializing in men's work and especially in erotic authenticity. So, welcome. And
Thank you.
would you like to explain to us what is erotic authenticity? And
I would love to, Erika. I would love to. First of all, thank you for inviting me today. This is a real pleasure for me to be here and to talk with you on a subject that is near and dear to my heart. So, yes, erotic authenticity to me speaks to uh, the kind of the basis of our our sexuality and our power. I think that many of us, and I specialize in men's work, but I think this is true for women as well. We're given messages from a very early age that uh, uh, that somehow stigmatizes our sexuality, and there, as a result, we have a population of people, a large segment of our population, who are ashamed of their sexuality. Uh, they have uh, given into a degree of self-falsification. And in my opinion, and I think this is shared by many other people, I think this is, I feel that this is at the root of many of the problems that are very much alive today between the genders. I've heard it referred to as a crisis of erotic rapport. That it feels often as if men and women are talking past each other. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lack of understanding of who we are as erotic sexual beings. And this carries over into the mundane world, into our working lives, into our relationships with our friends, our relationships with our families. So my goal is, when I work with my private clients, is we try to lift the lid on a lot of these taboos that have been placed upon us at a very early age, and it can be very it can be difficult work. There has to be a huge amount of trust established between the coach and the client. That's something I work very hard to do, and the result can be remarkable. And I will say that I'm not advocating setting everyone free so we're all running around with our clothes off. That's not my idea.
even though that would
I
be
think,
fun, right?
uh, right. Let's visualize that for a moment and enjoy the vision. Uh, uh, I think that we don't have to abandon all the things that we care about that are important to us in the mundane world, okay, in the material world, our jobs, our houses, our possessions, our relationships. In fact, I think we can be better stewards of those things if we are more authentic to ourselves uh, and to the people we interact with. So
Wow,
that's erotic authenticity in a nutshell.
got it. So, how does one come or step onto this path? How do men even think about it? Or in your case, how did it begin, right? How did you decided to, okay, so this is something that I want to pursue, explore? What events in your life were present that led you onto this path?
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for also pointing out that this is my story. I can't speak for the whole, for anyone but myself. I see trends. I talk to people. However, my story is mine. And I think that there are commonalities with many other people, many other men. So my individual story has to do with a long-term marriage that I was married for 27 years, had two kids, two really good, solid, stable adults. And the there was some the difficulties that we had in our relationship, to me, were revealed fairly early, well, revealed is a difficult word because I felt it at a very deep subconscious level. So maybe it wasn't really revealed so much, it was there and I was ignoring it, or I chose to ignore it because I felt it if I had followed the things that I was attracted to, then it would have been the end of the marriage. I felt that way from a very early
Mm-hmm.
time. And so looking back over the marriage, there were events that happened that were, shall we say, where part of my need for this authenticity were coming to the surface in the marriage and created incredible tension between us. And without too much detail, I wish to protect privacy here, but
Of course.
there were some very painful episodes, and ultimately, what uh, blew up our relationship in the moment. I'm talking about the acute event that blew up the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, had to do with different perspectives on monogamy. Now, I was faithful to my wife for almost 30 years that we were together. However, I was the subject of female attention, uh, and I didn't know what to do with that because, and this was more than just friendship attention. This was very erotically charged attention.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to it, I think that there are three responses that you have. If you're a married man and a woman who's not your wife expresses interest in you,
Mm-hmm.
you can either act on it,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I didn't do that. I was not about to do that. You can pretend it didn't happen, suppress it, push it down, or you can
Mm-hmm.
come clean to your partner and say, hey, this is what's happening. We need to talk about that. Well, I was not mature enough to take the third option. The second option, pressing it down, pretending it didn't happen, pretending it wasn't real, was the one I chose. And what that did, it's like taking a beach ball and trying to press it under the surface of the water. It's eventually going to pop out.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, uh, in short, that's what brought me to the realization that, hey, there's some things inside me that I have not addressed. And even in the couples therapy that held our marriage together until our kids were up and grown and
Mm-hmm.
off in college, uh, kind of skated around the issue of sexuality and this erotic authenticity that I was just explaining.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't really have any place to go emotionally. So what eventually uh, scuttled the marriage, and unfortunately also the friendship, which was very, very important to me, was I chose that third option, which is to come clean to my wife, and I handled it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I had no uh, roadmap, no mentors really, to explain to me how this should be done. And basically, I was responding to her intuition that was, she saw me, she knew I was distracted. She knew I was, my heart was elsewhere. Yet at the same time, as a polyamorous person, I was also, my love for my wife did not diminish. I wanted her in my life for the rest of my life, whether we were married or not. That's why I say that the friendship was so valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes within the marriage, that I think um, have to do with how men can support women. Um, and once again, I didn't have the mentors or the role models, really. I grew up in a very feminized environment, very strong mother, two strong-willed sisters, and my father was kind of a detached academic. Interestingly, he was a Jungian psychotherapist, so the principles of Carl Jung were very much present in my life from a young age. We would talk about, I mean, Dad tried to dinner time conversation was about archetypes and collective unconscious and you know, animus and anima, and this of course goes right over the kid's head. So a lot of eye rolling. But now that my dad has passed, he's 5 years gone, I'm returning to a lot of that material, which I think is very ironic. And I kind of feel dad's approval. So that is how I got to this. I had a long career in healthcare that had very little to do with with sexuality. I worked in ophthalmology for years as a photographer. So I was in the fight to combat blindness for decades, for almost 28 years. And I just left that position just about a month ago. And there is an overlap, though, because I had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of encounters with patients. And that teaches you a lot about human nature. So in time, you start to see patterns, and you start to see patterns of what makes people unhappy. And it's not just their eyes that brought them there. So this all crystallized for me in a calling to share my story, to help other people, because I have the teaching gene. My mother was or is, well, she's still alive, but she's retired. She's a former school teacher. So I love bringing new information to people, and that's why I'm on the path that I'm on right now, and that's why we're talking today.
And it's amazing. Yeah. And if you think about symbolically, right, the eyes are something that veils our perception of ourselves, right? So if we do have a bad eyesight or something with the eyes, it's like symbolically there is something that we are not seeing or something that we do not want to see. So the fact that you have chosen this profession and then went on to do the erotic authenticity, which is very much about revealing your true self, right? So removing all of the veils, everything from your eyes, like
that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. You know, when you work in academic ophthalmology, that's a very materialistic Cartesian world. There's not much talk about well, the emotional life of a person. You hear it sometimes, but it's not part of their treatment plan.
Yeah. I think it's everywhere, but it's changing. You know, people are finding new ways, and there's more conversations that are happening around.
Younger doctors now are more extensively trained in holistic, more looking at the whole person.
Yeah.
When I first got in, it was you would be laughed out of the room if you talked about a person's emotional life affecting their vision.
Definitely.
Which to many people comes down to numbers.
Yeah.
You know, if you're 20/20, great. If you're not, then let's see if how we can improve those numbers. It's all it's very materialistic in that sense.
So before this call, we were talking about the mission of the Temple of the Sacred Heart. So the mission was to really help people to fall in love with who they are, right? And when we were talking about this, you really resonated with this. And coming from a woman's perspective, right? I myself went through years of personal development, learning about my body and my mind and my soul, and getting deeper and deeper into who I truly was inside, right? Peeling the layers out. And I can speak only for the women on how it is for a woman to fall in love with who she is, and what does it do for a woman, and what benefits does it bring, especially in terms of relationship with another sex.
Mhm.
So how is it for a man to fall in love with himself, or do men at all pursue it?
Yeah, and this is very interesting. And for our audience, yes, we did talk about this beforehand. So there was a bit of um bit of intrigue. So yes, I do believe the experience of this falling in love experience, which is really a self-appreciation,
Mm,
there's a different pattern for women than there is for men. Um, since we're talking about the erotic sphere, the sphere of
mhm,
sexuality, I gravitated very quickly to this idea that in order for men to really to to love themselves and to appreciate their gifts to the world,
mm,
they one of those very important gifts has to do with understanding their sexual power.
mm,
And I'm not talking about just bedroom sexual power. I'm not talking about just prowess in the bedroom. Okay. Uh, this has to do uh, with your sacred masculine essence.
mm,
Are you living in this divine space as a truly masculine man? Now, I'm going to jump. I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit here and say
mhm,
that these are lessons that I did not get growing up. In fact, because my upbringing was very feminine,
mhm,
uh, male sexuality was viewed with suspicion in my family.
mhm,
And so my response as a young man was I became, in a sense, almost subservient to the need for women to live into their power.
mhm,
And it's because the women's movement was coming out of the shadows and into the mainstream when I grew up in the 60s and 70s. So I heard about this all the time. And what that turned me into is a young man who had a lot of female friends, but very few lovers because they just didn't take me seriously. I was not in my full power. Now, that was one fork in the road that I took. The other
mhm,
fork in the road is the is the macho route. Okay, and sometimes some people call it toxic masculinity today,
mhm,
which is uh, typified by the idea that women are inferior to men
mhm,
and that uh, man's role is to control and dominate women. And
mhm,
that was never on the table for me personally. However, to me, visually, symbolically, it represents two forks of a road.
mhm,
Now, I'm convinced that there is a middle path that we should be traveling.
mhm,
And to me, that's the path of self love and self understanding that radiates out into the world and into our relationships. And since we're on the subject, your
mhm,
relationships with women and women who are potential lovers, your family, your coworkers, your your aunties, your grandma. This applies in every male female relationship. So when men understand that they have this godlike power that is that is it, uh, it's supportive, it is protective, it is it's a bestowing of blessing. It's kind of the servant king model that I came back to in fatherhood when my kids were young. That really helped me through the tough times is realizing that yes, I'm the big guy here.
mhm,
However, I am in service to my family.
Mm-hmm.
So that made it so much easier for me to commute 2 hours a day, to put up with difficult work conditions, plow through my week month after year in support of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So now, personally, this did not necessarily lead to a sense of self-love, because there was this other denial that was going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think that this path of self-love, it really comes back to that, is know who you are. Know what gifts were given to you by the fact that you were born with that XY chromosome. Okay. Uh, and these gifts are needed. They are beautiful. They are important.
Mm-hmm.
They, but they're elusive.
So what does that mean? And when you talk about these gifts, can you expand a bit more? I'm just
I
curious, from a man's
mean, the
perspective.
gifts of sacred masculinity.
Mm-hmm. And what would those be?
Well, things that I just talked about. This
Mm-hmm.
that men can be. They don't have to give up their masculinity to be role models, to be strong, uh, to to be supportive of the people who, or to step into leadership roles, for example. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to, let's say you're in a leadership role at work. You don't have to squash the people under you. You
Mm-hmm.
can lift up the people under you. That's a very positive masculine trait.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us in the men's work that I do refer to archetypes. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so we talk often about the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And the king, this could be a whole separate interview, of course. Uh,
Definitely.
the king representing this the servant at the who's son of the final arbiter.
Mm-hmm.
King Solomon made the difficult decisions, right?
Yeah.
Um, the bestower of blessings, the warrior being a defender
Mm-hmm.
of boundaries, a defender, a person who's willing to get in and fight for the people he supports and the things he believes in.
Mm-hmm.
Magician being uh, a conduit for knowledge, for secret knowledge. And my magician, and this is an archetype that I identify with pretty strongly, is skills that we have, things we know how to do. Uh, I'm good at light carpentry, right? I can nail things together.
Yeah.
I can build shelves. I can get out and I can mow the lawn. These are not things. These are not exclusively male.
Yeah.
However, it's in my domain.
Okay.
And not only, and if if there's a hiccup with something, I have a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good idea of how to fix it. That's magician energy. And then there's this lover energy, which
Mm-hmm.
of course is is affection, love and affection that we
Mm-hmm.
hold for the people in our lives that we care for.
Yeah.
Um, and there's shadow sides as well. It's very interesting work. So uh, that's kind of the the environment that I'm working in mentally and emotionally.
Got it. Thank you for sharing this. I'm super curious on my own path towards having a sacred relationship, right? I
Mhm.
am learning to understand what it's like to be, what kind of woman do I need to become in order to have a sacred relationship, right? What archetypes do I embody also currently, right?
Mhm.
And what archetypes am I, or I get to work a bit more intently? And where are my natural kind of patterns and my natural skills are? So I can really relate to that. And And I suppose we're all humans, right? We all can be categorized and we all have archetypes and we all can and should really learn more about ourselves and our gifts, our needs and wants and everything else in order to really have the life that we want or to really have the relationship that we want. Because the relationship that we have with another is exactly the same relationship that we have with everything else. So, so where you are now, considering the paths that you already walked and lessons that you have already learned, what would you say were the biggest learning experiences for you that truly made you a man that you are today?
Great question. Wow. So that's kind of the if you boil it all down, right? Uh, I think it has to do with having overcome the fear of being real,
Mhm.
because I had all these voices telling me to be ashamed of
Mm.
my maleness. Okay. Uh, Getting through that with the help of some really wonderful women that I have uh, gotten close with in the past few years. So, with in those relationships, I discovered that uh, me being authentically myself, a dude, a guy,
Mhm.
unashamedly, unabashedly masculine, uh, but not a macho jerk at the same
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Lo and behold, suddenly I felt more sexy and more attractive to women, and they
Mhm.
were coming to me and they're giving me the thumbs up and they were wanted to spend time with me. And so that's when the curtain was lifted for me, and I said, wait a second. So wow, decades and decades of messages about my erotic power uh were wrong, just flat wrong. Whereas what was right is, in this moment, is here I am. I'm being supportive. Uh I'm able to use director energy. Able to use this warrior energy. I'm able to use my wisdom based on my 62 years on the planet.
Mhm.
Uh and very no resistance. It landed beautifully in the feminine world.
Mm.
So, and that was Erika, that was just a life-changing moment. Even though it wasn't a particular moment, it was more like something I look back on
Mhm.
and say,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, I kind of changed the way I did things." And oh my gosh, look at my social life. My calendar is great.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's a matter of trust,
Mhm.
and trust is one of my love languages generally. And if once I learned to trust uh, my divine masculinity, uh, things got so much better for me. I felt better. I slept better at night.
Mm.
Um, I had more success at work. People looked up to me.
Mhm.
I didn't seek that out. It just happened.
Mhm.
Um, so, and I'm not talking about a complete rewiring of my brain.
Mhm.
This was a subtle shift.
Yeah.
They talk about, if if a ship is going sailing across the ocean, if it takes a 0.1 degree difference, it's going to make a big difference to where it ends up. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened with me, is that
Mhm.
years ago, I just made a subtle shift, responding to the women I was spending time with.
Mm.
And it's made a tremendous difference for me, such that, and it really fuels this desire that I have to bring it to the greater world. Uh, because I think a lot of men have the feeling that they have to pull out everything by its root and replant the tree
Mm,
in order to have a new and great life. And I disagree with that. I don't think
mm,
it's that.
mm,
I mean, there's work that needs to be done. There's understanding that needs to be done.
mm,
But the actual behavior changes that have to happen
mm.
in a man are not as dramatic as one might think.
Got it. So I want to talk about more and go a bit deeper, right? Because we're talking about the sacred masculine energy and erotic authenticity. So and having as well myself like sacred sexuality practices and understanding how to cultivate, contain, and then direct sexual energy towards what I really want to achieve in this life,
Mhm.
right? Is and was such a revelation for me, right? So when I hear you talk about erotic authenticity or divine masculinity, it is my understanding that for men exactly the same, right? That there is a sexual energy that is present and that can be fostered in a man's body that can be used not to have random casual
Mhm.
relationships, right? And use and waste that energy in ways that is depleting and unsatisfying, but
Mhm.
use it to create really the life that they want or the
Yeah.
relationships that they want or achieve more
Yes.
in their lives, right?
Yes. Because wow, because there's so much. I mean, there's so much force
Mm,
in that in the sexual desire. I mean, it's it's straight biology. Uh, and I think one area that I'm beginning to explore in my personal life is tantra, and and so this is a relatively new thing for me, and this is really it's part of my rewiring process.
mm,
Uh, and one of the things they talk about in tantra is redirecting sexual energy,
mm,
and to so first of all, see it as a gift.
mhm,
It's a beautiful thing. So if I meet a woman that I'm attracted to, like really attracted to, right? Uh, old me would have thought, what steps do I need to take so
mhm,
I can get her to agree to jump in the sack with me? Uh, well, okay, so what that does, that makes sex the goal.
yeah.
All right.
Mm,
Uh, where in in the me that I want to become, that I hope I'm slowly becoming, that energy goes into my reserves, okay, into the places that I draw on for day-to-day life energy and inspiration.
mm,
And it's an opportunity for me to actually look into deeper connection. Let's say that this person that I previously was looking at as a sexual conquest
mm, mm,
uh, is now potentially the source of a really deep and rich relationship
mm,
that can color and beautify my life in ways that uh, one night of great sex cannot come close to matching.
mm,
So in that, this is from the tantra. From my understanding of tantra, as I said,
mhm.
I'm not an expert. I'm a new student
Yeah,
in the
a
world of tantra,
seeker.
but this really resonates with me. It
Yeah.
resonates with me because it puts relationship and connection at the top.
Mhm,
And sex is one of the great things that come out of that relationship.
mm, mm, mm,
So sex is no longer the goal. The sex is a benefit.
mm,
And it's one of many benefits in this great connection.
mhm,
So uh, I think I think that's a worthy goal. And it, I think all of us, well, maybe not all of us, but some of us know people who are remarkably skilled at getting people of the opposite sex to go to bed with them.
Yeah.
I've known people throughout this, and
The art of
you can't,
seduction, right?
the art, right? People, seduction artists, right? And I've envied these people because I want what they're getting. Now, however, you then talk to them, and this is not a sustainable lifestyle because it, unless you happen to be kind of a shallow person and that's all you care about. But if you care about connection, that's not the way to go about it. So many of people who have had hundreds of sexual partners feel kind of empty, feel an emptiness behind it. And that's too bad. However, I think it's symptomatic of a non-understanding of where deep connection really comes from. You don't get deep connection through sex, in my opinion. You get great sex through deep connection first. It happens the other way around.
Wow. Wow. So is this something that you can help men with?
Oh, I sure hope so.
Come on.
I do. I talk to a lot of men, and there are a lot of very motivated men, motivated to be more authentic and to not have to hide who they really are from themselves, from their partners, from the world around them. This is kind of the core of my practice, is that I'm going into scary places, and I don't just go into scary sexuality places. I will guide people into the BDSM and kink space if that's where they feel drawn. I will guide them into the plant medicine space and back again safely. And a lot of people feel pressure from their religious upbringing. Now, I can relate to that because I was a preacher's kid for the first 8 years of my life before my dad went into the psychoanalysis. He was a congregationalist minister, and so I know about church, and I know about the pressures that come from church. Fortunately, my parents were very open-minded, and they accept the fact that I'm a nature boy. I'm a nature worshiper. Okay, I identify as a neo-pagan, and I think that's I worship the things that I can see.
Yeah, me too.
I can see the moon and the stars. I can see the seasons change. I can see the tides turning. I can see the season. I can see the cycles of life.
Yeah.
And I can feel the life in there. So that's a taboo for many people, to even talk about the God picture being something that's outside of a church building. Yeah. That's really difficult for some people. So I can go there. I can go there with my clients as well. And I expect to all of those areas. And there may be taboos out there that I don't know about yet that I'll be scrambling to deal with. But I think those big four, the sexual, the monogamy, polyamory space, the BDSM kink, plant medicine, and the nature-based religions, I feel covers a big part of the dissatisfied male population. Wow. And that's where I work.
Wow. It's definitely well needed. I do feel that men do need guidance, and I can see more and more men's group popping up, which is great to see. And I do follow a couple as well on social media, just to see and take, I know, joy in, right? That we are all wanting more, that we are all wanting more out of relationship, that we are wanting more out of how we live, how we feel about ourselves, what we do with our life, and different things like that. And when we were talking again before this call, right, we were discussing that neither of us are the experts. And that both of us are the seekers of what we were discussing on this call, really, right? And that we want a deeper connection, and we want a deeper connection to ourselves. And therefore, we want a deeper connection with others, the connection that requires to look at ourselves honestly and understand who we truly are, right? Fall in love with every part of ourselves, with every desire, every need, and then share that with others, you know, and share and feel safe and trusted and accepted in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a minute to talk about the benefits.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do that.
I mean, there's a quote that I use in one of my workshops that I don't have in front of me, but I'll paraphrase it. It's something akin to, "There's no power greater than the power found in when two people are aligned in their purpose, they're aligned in their self-understanding." And I really, really resonate with that because I've experienced it in moments in my marriage, the best moments in my marriage. I think, wow, with her at my side, I can move mountains. Those were the moments that that attracted me to her in the beginning, because I felt that we had this great synergy, and I believe I believe that that's open to everyone. So to me, that is the main benefit. We're trying to, it sounds kind of business schooly, but we're trying to optimize, right? And optimization, it sounds kind of cut and dried, but we're just making the best of what we have, the best of what we bring to the table as men and women, and recognizing that energetically there's this mutuality, this co-creation energy that comes from the meeting, the joining of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine in living, breathing humans who are dealing with all of life's challenges. That's why we go to this trouble. It's not just, I mean, we have plenty of pain points, right? I mean, the pain points of separation, the pain points of disconnection, the pain points of divorce, awful, awful stuff, right? And my divorce cost me a half year's salary just in legal fees. Okay. I wish I had that back. So it's not just what we're trying to avoid, it's what we're trying to attain. So there's an avoidance piece here. Let's not feed the divorce lawyers. They've got plenty to do. Let's nurture this beautiful sacred possibility that we have between the masculine and the feminine. And by the way, this isn't just a cis male, cis female thing, because same-sex couples have these energetic dynamics as well. As a cis hetero male, I can't speak to that. However, I think it bears mention that this is not just a hetero phenomenon. This is a universal phenomenon.
Good. Wow. Okay. I'm feeling we are closer to the end of our time together, right? And I would like to thank you, first of all, for sharing. All right. It
It's been
is,
my pleasure, Erika. This has been really fun.
yeah, definitely. Because on one side, I can feel how vulnerable that might be, right? And how much courage and strength does one need even to talk about that as well. And I am sure that whoever stumbles upon this video and listens to this interview will receive the benefit that they really needed and perhaps were seeking at this time, right? We are
Yes.
two seekers in this life, and I believe, yeah, as I mentioned before, yeah, it's like we're floating on the same boat, right? And whoever
Yeah.
wants to come over and experience or get the experience that either of us had in life, and perhaps learn something or understand something that they have not yet heard or have not yet seen, that will enrich their life and will help them to be more connected to themselves and to others. That's already a thumbs up, right? Even if it's one person.
It's absolutely worthy, and I honor the work that you do with women. I think it's fantastic. I think women have really um, they saw a need,
Mm.
and they took it upon themselves to resolve the lack. And I think honestly men use that as an inspiration now.
Mm.
I mean, the Mankind Project, which is the men's group that I'm working in, arose in the 80s. I think it was in Milwaukee they started as a response to the women's movement, and not as in opposition to it, but more like, wow, they're they've got their act together. They are making improvements. What about us?
Yeah.
And not waiting for mommy to solve it for you, but grabbing the bull by the horns and doing the work.
Mm.
And it's ongoing. And so, and this weekend I'll be out on the land up in the Sierras in California, working with a group of 20 men who are going through a rite of passage. So it's very gratifying.
Yeah, that
So
sounds
men are stepping into this role.
mm.
Huge need for it.
Mhm.
Uh, so I I bless and honor all the people that are of whatever stripe and whatever description who are trying to make the world better this way. So
Definitely.
I'm very
Okay,
grateful to you for giving me this opportunity.
you're welcome. So, um, so to end with this call, I am aware that there's something that you would like to share with the viewers about what you have to offer. So, would you like to speak to this now?
I do. We're September 2023. My website is under construction, so I won't tell you about that. But I will say that you're going to put a link to my Facebook
Yeah,
profile
down
into the
below in the
chat,
comments.
okay, or into the notes below.
Mm-hmm.
I welcome connection through that. My Instagram is also there.
Yeah.
My personal Facebook is also my business page, Facebook. I'm it's part of authenticity, right? I'm not hiding behind anything.
Yeah.
And also, I think very critically, what I think will be hopefully some of your viewers will take advantage of. There's also a Calendly link in there
Mm-hmm.
where people can sign up for a free 45-minute erotic authenticity check-in.
Hmm.
And this was designed for men. However, I am happy to talk to women about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I welcome that. So uh, those are all in there. Those are my offerings. And I try to I'm pretty active on social media, so I try to keep things lively.
Yeah.
And so and finally I just want to encourage all the people watching this to uh, respect that voice that inside you that is yearning for for more, for a better life. So many of us have gotten these crazy, distorted lessons over the years, and let's not let them rule us.
Yeah.
That will be my final word.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for stopping by and listening into this interview. And we will see you again soon. Goodbye.